When the Anderson family gets a new dog, they have little to no doubt about which one, as they immediately fall head over heels in love with a particular puppy's ocean blue eye. But maybe they shouldn't have been so eager, as they didn't just adopt any ordinary dog, but they only find that out when their vet calls the police on them. The poor family unknowingly got a lot more than they bargained for. Billy and Erica weren't sure what to think. The vet didn't speak a word to them when he took their dog away. What was going on? Could this maybe have something to do with the weird behavior they experienced last night? Or was there something else? Before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The vet returns to the waiting room 10 minutes later without their new dog. Before they can even question where he was, the vet informed them that he had just called the police and that they were on their way. Billy and Erica were stumped. Little Tim was crying by the pint, screaming that he wanted his dog back. But when the vet started explaining himself, it suddenly made sense for the couple. How could they have been so naive? But to better understand this situation, a bit of backstory is required. The Andersons were a young family living in Vermont. Billy, Erica, and their 4-year-old son, Tim, lived together in a small town. Recently in the Anderson home, there had been a lot of sadness, and although the family had just moved into a new town and didn't know much about the town, there was another reason for this sadness. The young family had recently lost a dear member, one that had been a part of the family for 11 years, their family pet, Rio. Rio was not merely a pet, but a long-standing member of the family. You see, Rio was the first friend Billy made when he ran away from home at 16. Billy's home situation had been less than pleasant. His parents were verbally and emotionally abusive, constantly monitoring his actions to the point where he was restricted from making friends. Billy often fantasized about a world outside of the grasp of his parents. So much so that once he got out, the first thing he did was buy a dog. For the first 2 years, it was Billy and Rio, best friends forever. The young man struggled to find his ground when he was on his own, but luckily, having a loyal friend through it all eased the pain. Rio was there for all of the monumental moments in Billy's life, including his first date with Erica and the birth of their newest family member, Tim. Rio was a special part of their family life, and just as he had been there for Billy, he was also very close to their young son, Tim. Now that Rio was gone, it was clear that things were no longer the same. The family was unmistakably sad, but they had an inkling as to how they would fix it. Let's get another dog. Even as he said it, Billy had to admit he wasn't so sure about his plan. Erica shook her head. She knew it was far too soon to be getting a new pet. Rio had meant a lot to both her husband and Tim. So much so that she was a little surprised he had brought replacing the dog up so soon. However, there was a dog-shaped hole in their life that needed filling. Erica and Billy talked about it a few more times. Erica was concerned that Billy was jumping into things a bit too quickly, and Billy was doing his best to convince his wife that he was ready for the change. Eventually, Billy won Erica over, and the two decided they would get a dog. But the hurdles had just begun. The first hurdle the family faced was in choosing the next breed they would have. After voting, they decided on a husky. This would be easier for Tim to adjust to, as Rio had been a husky as well. Next, the family found themselves searching the web for a licensed breeder, as Tim really wanted a puppy. The couple was unfamiliar with the breeding world and felt the internet would offer the most options. After much searching, they found 2 husky breeders. The couple decided to make it a weekend trip and scheduled visits with both breeders. However, their trip proved to be a little disappointing for the family. The first breeder gave off the wrong vibe from the start. Although the puppies were cute and Tim and Erica had a nice time playing with them, Billy couldn't fight the weird feeling being at the location gave him. First, it appeared that the dogs lived in uncomfortable areas. Secondly, the cost seemed questionable too. The young family didn't have much luck with the second shop either. While this breeder was cleaner and seemed to take better care of its puppies, the couple was greeted with some sad news on arrival. They had sold the very last 2 puppies online. Now, Erica and Billy were stumped. The entire family was sad once more. They felt disheartened that their entire trip had turned out to be nothing but a bust. Billy and Erica decided it would be best to get home and figure out a new plan. However, 15 minutes into their drive, and the couple spotted an animal shelter. Erica was ecstatic. She had begun to lose hope and was feeling a little dismayed when she spotted the small shelter on the side of the road. Turning to Billy, she pleads with him to stop and poke in. Something told her they would find what they were looking for. The young family decided that it couldn't hurt to at least check it out. The young couple was in a neighboring small city and didn't expect to find much of a selection. They were proven right. The shelter attendant explained they only had 5 dogs in their keep, and only 2 of them were puppies. However, one dog in particular immediately caught their eye. It was one of the puppies. And as little Tim exclaimed, it was clear that the little boy had the same thought as his mother. The puppy looked like a husky, or at the very least, like one of its parents was a husky. However, the most fascinating thing about the animal was its eyes. They were starling blue eyes that neither of them had ever seen on a dog. The dog was timid and smiled while keeping its distance. It was unlike the other dogs that danced and hopped in hopes of getting some attention. Instead, the little puppy stared on high alert at the door. The employee explained that the dog had been left at their door just the night before and was still acquainting itself with the space. More so, since it was so new and had been left with no identification, they knew very little about the puppy, other than the fact that it wasn't chipped. The Andersons wanted the puppy, but there was some hiccup. However, the employee stated that the shelter did not normally let animals go without first verifying their identity. However, it was a small town and an even smaller shelter that had not seen an adoption in many months. That fact made the employees state that they would make an exception for the young family, but would they come to regret it? The couple was overjoyed and headed in to sign the necessary paperwork. It seemed far too much like fate to let the puppy go. While Billy and Erica signed the papers, young Tim played with the new member of their family, who was now slowly getting used to the young boy's advances. It took about an hour for all the paperwork to be signed and recorded. And finally, the young family was headed back home with their new family pet. Everyone was excited, most of all Tim, who had now made a new best friend. Unfortunately, this feeling would not last long for the family. Soon, a great revelation would be stealing their newfound joy. One of the conditions of their being allowed to take the puppy home was a promise to get the dog a full checkup at the vet for health reasons, as the shelter had not had the chance to do so. Little did they know what the visit would lead to. The family had the chance to bring their new puppy, who Tim had fittingly named Blue, by the vet that same day. But then they would need to rush. So they decided to plan an appointment for tomorrow. They first wanted to introduce Blue to his new home. When they got home, Blue seemed to be beaming with excitement and energy. They watched Blue as he carefully inspected every corner of his house, eventually ending at the dog bed, where he quickly fell asleep. The family had already fallen head over heels in love with their new addition to the family, and they were so happy they brought him home. They could watch this little angel sleep for hours, but there was so much they did not know yet. Soon after, the family also went to bed. Blue had been asleep for an hour, so they felt comfortable leaving him. That night at 2 o'clock, they were awoken by loud howling from downstairs. Billy, startled, went down to check on Blue. He wasn't in his sleeping place, but had moved next to Billy's PC. Confused, Billy carried him back and closed the office door. The rest of the night remained quiet. The next morning, they found Blue sleeping against the office door. He seemed inexplicably drawn to the PC. However, they had little time to ponder it, as they had an early vet appointment. All three went together, though they had planned to leave Tim at home. The clinic was busy, and Blue attracted attention due to his striking blue eyes. Curious, the family searched online and found that such eye color was rare, possibly due to pigment deficiency. They hoped the vet could clarify more. The receptionist took notice of the commotion and quickly informed the vet, who moved the Jeffersons up the list. The vet, unusually serious, took Blue into his office alone, which surprised Billy, as he had expected to accompany him. 10 minutes later, the vet returned, but without Blue. He then informed them he had called the police. Billy and Erica were stunned, and Tim began crying, demanding his dog back. The vet explained that a missing report had been filed for a rare puppy belonging to a wealthy tech CEO, and Blue perfectly matched the description. The CEO had also offered a reward for his return. The family wasn't in trouble, but the vet had called the authorities first to prevent any emotional impulsiveness. 30 minutes later, the CEO arrived with the police. He provided proof that Blue was his, explaining that the puppy wasn't chipped yet. Everything clicked. The attraction to PCs made sense now. Blue had spent his time in the CEO's office, surrounded by computers. Heartbroken, the family had no choice but to return Blue. Tim was devastated, refusing to accept that Blue wasn't his. However, there was good news. The CEO honored his reward and allowed them to visit Blue, whose real name was North, anytime. A few weeks later, the family adopted another husky puppy, using the CEO's money to ensure they got a well-raised and fully checked one. They quickly grew to love their new pup just as much, and everyone ended up happy.